strangely strange, but
Hi, my name is John Downs. We're driving down the A39 in Cornwall. I've been visiting Morning Old Church, the haunt of the Owlman, for nearly 20 years now. But this is the first time I've taken Karina, my lovely wife, and our new puppy, Pickles. So, welcome to another edition of On the Track. Hi, my name is John Downs. In 1997 I wrote a book called The Owlman and Others, which tells the story of a series of encounters with a grotesque feathered bird creature in and around this churchyard behind us. We're in Morning Smith in southern Cornwall, and the story started in the spring of 1976.
It actually came as quite a shock to realise that I've been visiting Morning Old Church for 20 years now. I don't know why it should be surprising. After all, I owe this church and these woods my career. The really surprising thing is that this is the first time in the whole 2 decades that I've been visiting here that I have ever come in order to take library footage for the CFZ video library. We had been commissioned to come down to Morning to take some video footage for an American TV show which is currently in production. And so we decided, as we were here, we might as well get some stuff for our own archives. Both my friend Bo at the TV company in Los Angeles and Graham Inglis, who was a very hard taskmaster, had asked me if, whilst I was there at the church, I could tell the story of the Owlman. Well, strange as it might seem to you people who watch me each month here on CFZtv, but I actually don't like sitting in front of a camera telling stories. And so I was particularly pleased when we bumped into a couple of backpackers who wanted to know what we were doing there, and it gave me a perfect excuse to tell them.
We all started at Easter Saturday, in fact, 1976. There were a family who were on holiday from Southport up in the north, and they got down here late on Good Friday night. They parked in this car park, and while Mrs. Melling, mother, was setting out a picnic, the 2 little girls, one who was 8 and one was 10, playing in the graveyard, and came screaming out, shouting, "Mummy, Mummy, there's a nasty, horrid great bird now," flying above the church tower. And then, that's the story. That's the story. I'm not saying it's true, that's the story. A few weeks later, there were 2 girls camping just in the woods down there, and with one of these, I've actually done a long interview with her by email, 30 years later. But this happened in 1976. I spoke to her by email in 2000, and she and her friend were camped there overnight, and they saw this strange thing that they thought looked like something out of a horror movie. And these stories continued to come in every few months, up until the early 1980s, and they fizzled out. Then there was some strange stuff happened around about Halloween in 1986, and then in 1989 there was the incident that I've investigated most. There's a guy, I'll call him Gavin, that's not his real name, but that's the name I used in the book, because the guy's now quite a famous scientist. He's a really famous and very dull scientist, and he always refuses to let me go public with this because it would destroy his career. But he was out here, he was about 30, he was 13, 14 with a 12, 13-year-old girlfriend, wandering through the woods, saw this thing again, gave me a really, really good description, something with a weird sort of, no beak, a weird sort of crescent-shaped hole instead of a mouth, grey feathers and talons like a crab. And he drew me pictures. The weirdest thing about this, over the years, I've interviewed him dozens of times. I met him first in 95, so 13 years ago. And in the last 13 years, I've done my best to break his story, and I can't. He's either a bloody good actor, in fact, he's either the best actor I've ever worked with, or something really weird shit did happen. I don't know. I don't believe. I'm a scientist. I don't believe in hocus pocus, but something weird seems to happen. I wrote a book about it in 1997, and every few years American TV companies send me here to do little pieces to camera for magazine programs.
I suppose this is really just a shameless plug, but the season of goodwill is coming up, and the CFZ need quite a lot of goodwill as we're in the middle of the nastiest recession for something like 70 years. So if you want to know the real story of the Owlman, rather than the 2.5-minute edited highlights I've just given you, you could do worse than buying this excellent little book. It's available on Amazon all around the world and in good bookshops, and it makes a fantastic Christmas present, though I say it myself. Now I want to introduce you to a new friend of mine. His name's Jordan Warner, he's 15 years old, and he's just released the first 2 episodes of a webTV series called Cryptid Hunt. And you know what? It's bloody smashing. I don't know about you guys, but I think it's fantastic for somebody of any age to self-fund a project of this magnitude. Well, I'm doing my best to help, as are several other members of the CFZ core team. And it's heartening to see how many others of the cryptozoological old guard have lent a hand. But there are some famous faces who really should know better, who are conspicuous by their absence. We're not going to mention names here, but you all know who you are, and I think you should be ashamed of yourselves. What's even worse is the reception that Jordan has got on some of the cryptozoological forums. He's been accused of spamming one particular forum merely for coming up online regularly and giving updates as to the progress of his project. The whole affair then degenerated into a round of name-calling and petty insults. For God's sake, the boy is 15, and he has done something pretty damn remarkable. Furthermore, he's done it off his own bat, and he's done it with remarkably primitive editing software and equipment. When you compare it with most of the drivel which passes for cryptozoological content on YouTube, it stands up remarkably well. Look at this, for example. This is the best interview that I have ever seen with 1977 Lake Champlain monster witness Sandra Mancy.
It was kind of just a fun day. My son would say, oh, let's go this way, we'll go that way. And it was like maybe 3 hours that we were away from where we had started in St. Albans. And we decided to stop and let the children get out of the car and just blow off some steam. And we walked across a field and down an embankment. And my children had taken their shoes off and they're just kind of wading in the water. And my husband decided to go back to the car to get the camera to take pictures of the children. And when he was gone, I'm looking out over the surface of the water and I see a turbulence, and it wasn't alarming or anything. I thought, wow, it's a pretty big school of fish. And then I thought, no, it's way too much for a school of fish. I thought maybe it was divers, but there was no buoys. So I'm just more or less entranced by it, and then the surface of the water broke. And at that point I did think it was a sturgeon, because it broke the water and it was pretty good size. And then it came up, and the head and the neck came up, and then the back came up. At this point, my mind was, what is it? And you try to rationalize. And I thought, okay, it's got to be a sturgeon. It's got to be inanimate. And then I saw it come up. And at this point, I wasn't even frightened. I had no clue what I was seeing. I was not frightened. Then my husband got to the top of the bank and he saw it. And he is screaming, "Get the kids out of the water, oh my God." So then I got caught up in his panic. And he got the children, told the children to go back to the car, and he helped me up the bank. He grabbed my hand to help me up the bank. At this point I'm shaking, because now I'm having his panic. I'm just caught up in all his panic. And he handed me the camera, he put the camera in my hand, sort of helped me up the banking. Once I got up the banking, I turned and I'm watching it. And it's just kind of real slow, looking around. It never looked at us, never. It was black, when it first came up. And then as the water came off it, it got grayish, and it had like a texture to it, but yet it was smooth. And I saw the mouth. I don't remember ever seeing eyes, never. But I remember the mouth. Lost my balance. My knees just gave out. And so when I was down there, I picked the camera up. It was just a little 110 telescomatic. It was not a big deal camera. I think it was like $29.99 at the time, you know. And I picked it up and I took the picture. And as I did that, my husband was saying, come on, come on, come on. And it started getting a little more motion to it, a little more to it. And we're watching it, and it started going down. And when it went down, it went down, and then it went like this. And after it was under the water, we heard a boat way off in the distance. So my thinking was, it had to have known that boat was coming long before my sense of hearing picked it up, tell me what I saw. And from there, it's all history.
Of course the shows aren't perfect. On the Track is far from perfect. And I have been doing this a hell of a lot longer than Jordan has. I don't agree with all of his conclusions. His espousal of the plesiosaur theory, for example, is something which I gave up on many years ago. But Cryptid Hunt is a remarkable piece of work, and I am very proud to be associated with it. Well done, Jordan. I'm a country boy at heart, and I do my best never to have to leave my garden, let alone the village. Bideford's too big for me, and so when I have to go to London once or twice a year, it's usually a crashing chore. However, the first weekend in November wasn't. It was the first unconvention for 2 years, and it was great fun, and I'm very, very glad that we went. The 14 Times Unconvention has been running on and off since 1994, and I haven't missed a single one yet, and I have no intention of starting now. The CFZ posse were there in force. Karina and I were joined by young Dave, my nephew, Matthew Osborne, who, by the way, won last month's competition. He was actually the only person to successfully tell me that the music, Superheap, in last month's On the Track, was from the first album by Elephant's Memory, an undeniably obscure little New York band who are only really known for having backed John Lennon and Yoko Ono for several years, and in an earlier incarnation had produced this album, providing some of the music for the film Midnight Cowboy. But I digress. Yeah, that's Matthew wearing a very fetching orange shirty thing, and we can't show you young Dave because young Dave was, I believe, behind the camera at this point. Dave, Karina, Matt and I were joined by Ol Lewis, Richard Freeman, Lisa Dowley, Tim Matthews, my stepdaughter Shosh and her future husband Gavin, and last but certainly not least, Fleur Fulcher, a young lady who turned up at the Weird Weekend this year and captivated all of us. Dave and Matt and Fleur and Tim handed out leaflets explaining the new CFZ outreach education program, and later on, at the end of my talk on the Chupacabra, I explained more.
But on the home front, back in the village where my wife and I are happy to live, I have come across some even more disturbing stuff. When we did the first Weird Weekend there, much to my amazement, 150 people turned up. It made a large profit, everybody was happy, everybody liked it, and I started getting kids from the village coming and saying, here, what can we do to help? And I started doing community projects with some of the children. I am absolutely goddamn appalled when I find a little boy of 12 comes to me, wants to do stuff with animals, wants to study mysteries, wants to be a monster hunter and doesn't know the names of any of the continents. I am absolutely appalled. David, I'm sorry, mate. I'm not having a go at you, it's having a go at the educational system which your poor dear parents are paying for. I was doing some species labels for the zoo that my darling wife owns a share in. Dave came and said, "What's the New World monkey?" I said, "The monkey that comes from the New World, you twit." What's the New World? I said that I was absolutely appalled. I had a word with a friend of mine who has a degree in zoology. He said, "Oh, well, these days, the fact that you have the old and new world isn't seen as very important." What? He then told me, because I was talking about something else, he then said to me, because I was talking about something that lived in Indochina, "Oh, well, these days they think Indochina and China are the same place." Is something really, really, really wrong when a long-haired anarchist hippie who only stopped taking recreational drugs because the mixture of heroin and diabetes would have killed me even quicker stands up as somebody championing proper knowledge, proper education? And now, despite the fact I wanted to retire, I do stuff. I am doing community work, I am doing youth group stuff, I am working with kids, and this is all getting out of bloody control. So when people say to me, "John, why do we have families at the Weird Weekend? Why do we have kids there?" It's simple. Because it is time to get out of the ghetto. I have had a great time. I love coming to Uncon. I love it. It's my favourite weekend of the year. I enjoy it even more than the Weird Weekend because I don't have to do any work. I can wander around talking to people, having a few drinks, and get up and wave my arms around for an hour. I don't have to pick up the pieces afterwards. It's fantastic. I love it here. But, and this is no slight on 14 Times, on Ian or any of the organisers, there are less people here than there were 10 years ago. It's not because these guys are doing anything wrong, it's because less people are interested in this subject. It is because 10 years ago you would have a steady stream of school leavers who were interested in trying to push back the boundaries of human knowledge in a slightly weird way. Now you don't. That is why I have a conference, the only one in the world that children come to, events for children. Yes, children do walk in and out of the auditorium, so goddamn what, they're learning something which is more than happens anywhere else in their poor, benighted little lives. Suddenly, the CFZ has become far more important than it ever set out to be. I just wanted to start a club for people who were interested in mystery animals. I had been reading 14 Times from 1980 something, and I thought in 1992, hey, wouldn't it be nice if there was a magazine like 14 Times just about animals? And I just wanted to do it because it was fun. Now, we are the biggest in the world. We are the biggest cryptozoological publishers in the world. We have a museum, we make films, we have a multimedia website, we do most of this stuff for free. And it is time to get out of the ghetto. The reason that we do what we're doing and the reason that the CFZ has changed so much in recent years is because if we don't reach out to your normal people, there's no point in preaching to convert, you guys all believe it anyway. It's lovely to come here, it's lovely to be amongst friends. You're all welcome to the Weird Weekend, but the thing that I do at the Weird Weekend is to grab people in who don't believe and open their eyes to new possibilities. Guys, some of you, hopefully all of you, if the boys have done their job today, will have had a slightly belligerent little manifesto that I wrote when I was in a really bad mood the other day. I meant every word of it. I might possibly, with hindsight, have sugar-coated it a little bit more. And it was probably a bad idea. It was a Heraclitus who did that quote. Probably. Next slide.
Let's go to questions.
I know. Next picture. It was probably a bad idea to quote Heraclitus and the Angry Brigade, but I mean every bloody word of it. If what we are doing, if the reason we are here is to have any more importance than just being here for a weekend of entertainment, then it's about time that we became militant. We went out and did it. because if we don't, nobody else will. Thank you very much. God bless.
Well, I wasn't expecting quite so much applause. Certainly wasn't expecting to be cheered. And when an earnest-looking bloke with a beard came up, patted me on the back and called me comrade, I realised that somehow I seemed to have struck a nerve. And it seemed to be a nerve that made a lot of sense for a lot of people. But I meant what I said, every word of it, especially the bits about it being time for the Forteana in general and the CFZ in particular to break out of the ghetto. 2009 will see Animals and Men, the magazine, having been published for 15 years. It will also see us publishing our 50th edition. It will see us publishing our 50th book, and it will also, by and by, see my 50th birthday. In order to mark these 3 half-centuries, we are going to break out of the ghetto. We are launching a whole range of community projects aimed at adults and children. We are going to be doing educational theatre. We are going to be doing school visits. We are going to be doing outreach exhibitions for the museum. We are going to be doing permanent displays at zoos and museums around the country. And we're dipping our toes for the first time into the medium of internet radio. Next year is going to be a very exciting one, and we'll tell you lots more about it next time.
The branch of the linden is leafy and green. The rage has deserted the sea. The world holds a promise that shines unseen. Tomorrow belongs to me. The babe in his cradle is soundly asleep. The blossom embraces the bee, and love like a valley lies wide and deep. Tomorrow belongs to me. Oh Father, oh show us a sign. Your children have waited to see. The morning will come when the world is mine. Tomorrow belongs to me. Father, oh show us a sign. Your children have waited to see. The morning will come when the world is mine. Tomorrow belongs, tomorrow belongs, tomorrow belongs to me. Tomorrow belongs, tomorrow belongs, tomorrow belongs to me. Tomorrow belongs, tomorrow belongs, tomorrow belongs to me. The morning will come when the world is thine. Tomorrow belongs to me.
Patrick Huige, who's our friend and our friendly rival with Anomalous Books, invited me to come up and join in his workshop on the future of fortune publishing. I took advantage of the situation in order to lay out our stall, our manifesto, if you will, in a public arena.
There was a lot list of titles up here today, and I would have to say that we would have published very few of them. We don't publish stuff, and I do apologise if I am insulting, I'm not meaning to, any publisher or author here, but we do not publish quasi-religious stuff which is to make people feel better about their own imminent death. I don't give a toss whether there is an afterlife. I will find out when I'm dead. Like Gerald Dole, my great hero, said, nobody yet has faxed back a reliable account, so let's go and wait and see what happens. We don't publish New Age books, we don't publish self-help books, we don't publish books that are from any religious or political persuasion. You said, Patrick, that you were surprised that your book of a Wiccan self-help manual of spells was surprised to sell so well. I'm not. It's the sort of bullshit that sells enormously. Sorry, I must not offend anybody from this persuasion. I do apologise. I have no meaning to tread on anyone's toes, but we wouldn't publish that sort of stuff. What we publish is basic nuts and bolts, animal-related Forteana. We publish stuff for which there is we publish stuff mostly for which there is a body of physical evidence, or which makes me laugh. We do have editors. Patrick's completely right. Every publisher, every author, particularly me, needs at least 3 people to go through and say, you can't say that, that's rubbish. We do have authors. The main difference between us and I think any other publisher in the world is that we don't do it for the money. I really don't give a toss about the money. We do it because we think it's a good thing to do. Back in my misspent youth, I was a fan of a punk band called Crass. Anybody heard of Crass? Yes. Anybody not heard of Crass? Do they owe us a living? Of course they do. I went to visit them once, and I was talking to their singer, a guy called Steve Ingram, and said, "You've just sold 200,000 copies of your album, it's managed to get the indie chart. How do you do it? What's your distribution?" And he just smiled at me, opened the door, and there in the kitchen with 3 kids and a couple of spiky-haired Herberts stuffing records into envelopes. And I thought, this is good. This is what I want to do. And he said to me, the reason we do records that we want to put out. Records we think that are good. Sometimes they sell, sometimes they don't. The ones that sell pay for the ones that don't. And that's what we do.
It's sad, but the one thing that people don't seem to understand is that this really isn't about the money. Sure, the CFZ do make quite a lot of money, but by golly, we spend it again. We do a lot of work with children, and there are quite a few kids, like young Ross here, who come and do voluntary work with us. And no, it's not, like the rumours say, because we don't have to pay them very much, but because children seem to instinctively understand what we're trying to do. They don't see anything peculiar in dedicating one's life to the pursuit of unknown animals, and they, like us, seem to think that it is a very important thing, and furthermore, something which has ramifications all across the modern world. But enough of agitprop and enough of crypto politics. It's time for our regular monthly look at new and rediscovered creatures. A team led by a Texas A&M University anthropologist has discovered a group of primates not seen alive for 85 years. Pygmetaceas, tiny creatures the size of a small mouse and weighing less than 2 ounces, have not been observed alive since they were last collected from a museum in 1921. Several scientists believe that they were extinct until 2 Indonesian scientists trapping rats in the highlands of Sulawesi accidentally trapped and killed a Pygmetacea in 2000. Sharon Gursky-Doyen, working with one of her graduate students, Nanda Groh, and a team of locals, trapped 3 of the nocturnal creatures in Indonesia in late August. The Pygmetaceas possess fingers with claws instead of nails, which Gursky-Doyen says is a distinguishing feature of the species and distinguishes them from nearly all other primates which have nails, not claws. These claws may be an adaptation to the mossy environment, she believes. Australia has a new mammal. Scientists have discovered a previously unknown dolphin swimming in the nation's southern waters. Until now it had been thought that the world had just 2 species of bottlenose dolphin, the common bottlenose, generally at home in offshore waters around the world, and the more coastal Indo-Pacific species are both found in in Australian waters. However, Macquarie and Monash University researchers connecting genetic samples from what they thought were coastal dolphins made an unexpected find. After DNA testing about 200 mammals off Victoria, South Australia and Tasmania for a population study, the scientists realised they were not coastal bottle-nosed dolphins at all. They look alike but are genetically quite different. A previously unknown population of vampire moths has been found in Siberia, and in a twist worthy of a horror movie, entomologists say that the bloodsuckers may have evolved from a purely fruit-eating species. Only slight variations in wing patterns distinguish the Russian population from a widely distributed moth species, Calyptra thalictri, in Central and Southern Europe. This species is known to only feed on fruit. When the Russian moths were experimentally offered human hands this summer, the insects drilled their hook and barbed-line tongues under the skin and sucked blood. Entomologist Jennifer Zasper at the University of Florida says that the discovery suggests that the moth population could be on an evolution trajectory away from other C. thalictri populations. This is the second population of vampire moths Zasper and her team have found. They discovered the first also in Russia in 2006. Based on geography, based on behaviour, and based on a phenotypic variation we saw in the wing pattern, we can speculate that this represents something different, something new, Zasper said. But it's really difficult to say without knowing genetic differences between individuals in that population, and amongst individuals from other populations, how different this group is going to be.
Well, that's about it for this episode. It's taken an inordinate length of time to edit, and it's coming up to midnight, which actually gives me a chance to say a very, very happy birthday to my darling stepdaughter Olivia. That's her, to all her fans across the internet. My darling stepdaughter Olivia, who I love very, very much, is 21 in about 12 minutes' time. And so, on that note, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has contributed to this episode. Thank you to the National Geographic Channel, from whom I have pinched, without permission, large amounts of their video. Thank you to Karina and to Ol for their camera work. And until next time.